Good afternoon. We are here at Asking for a Friend. Asking for a Friend is brought to you by Never Not Creative, Youngbloods and Mentally Healthy. This whole session exists because we want to create a safe place for you to be able to ask the unaskable. The questions that you're worried may change the way people treat you at work or affect the opportunities that might be given to you. This is the place to ask those questions. So make sure that you have a few written down or get them typed in already so that all you have to do is just hit enter. We're bringing together industry leaders and mental health professionals to give you non-judgmental responses in a safe and an anonymous environment. Before I introduce our amazing guests that we have today, I'll give you a little bit of housekeeping, so how to get the most out of today. So you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, is that right? I don't know how I'm mirrored here, but we'll see. One of those sides of your screen is a questions tab. So please ask your questions in there. Get them in nice and early so that we can get to them. We have some questions that have come in beforehand that we'll be going through in the sort of the first half of the session as well. And also you can add comments and thoughts or links to things in the chat if you think something appeals to you specifically or that you can relate to or you want to share with other people. So feel free to add those into the chat. If you need more immediate help, consider getting in touch with any of the following resources here, which I'm just putting into the chat. So that's a need help now question page over on mentallyhealthy.org. A caveat, so that everything that we do in Never Not Creative and Mentally Healthy is a volunteer run and therefore essentially unofficial. We're a bunch of people using community to come together and tackle the challenges that our industry is facing. So with that in mind, also remember that with this being anonymous, we don't have the context for your questions. So we're doing the best we can with the information that we have. Everybody's situation is different. Hopefully the advice you get today is a good starting point for you to kind of look into something further and then potentially get professional or even just casual help from other people and other opinions as well. So with the housekeeping out of the way, I'm delighted to welcome Tara Hurster. Tara is a psychologist and the founder of the Tara Clinic, where Tara is an acronym for Therapeutic Addiction Recovery Assistance. She supports busy and successful people to regain control over substance use and addiction while leaving the guilt and shame behind. So very much Tara's specialist subject. So if you do have any questions around that today, please add them in. We've had one that's come in already. After helping thousands of people to work through the experience of substance use, she's focused her sights now on disrupting the way that we view addiction through reducing the negative stigma. Welcome, Tara.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And Lindsay. Lindsay is an accomplished creative director from Queensland, currently plying his trade with the team at Growth Ops Chemistry. Or do we just say chemistry now, I think? Is that right? Just rewind.
As of about 2 weeks ago, officially just chemistry.
So I'll edit that. Currently plying his trade with the team at Chemistry. Lindsay is a mental health advocate and has recently led the Queensland government's push to help Queenslanders look after their mental well-being with the Dear Mind campaign. Having spent almost 20 years in the industry, Lindsay has more than an insightful understanding of how to make friends, get ahead, and produce outstanding work in the creative industry. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you.
And we've been having chats in the lead up to this one, so it's good. I'm really looking forward to this one. And yes, go Queensland. First Queenslander, maybe. Might be the first Queenslander.
No. Really?
I think so. Now I think about it. We've had Victoria, New South Wales, New Zealand. I think you might be the first Queenslander.
Well, I mean, you've got to go outside into the exciting land of Queensland at some point. So if I'm the first one, I'm happy to be.
I'll put a little frame around you on the website, like a maroon frame.
Brilliant.
Cool. Okay. So let's get into the questions. Lindsay, I'm going to come to you first. So is it feasible for someone in my profession to start a business at 45 and expect to still be working in a creative capacity and attracting clients through to retirement age and beyond when I have no evidence of good examples to help suggest the contrary?
Quite simply, of course. Of course it is. I'm not sure of, location of where this might have come from, but from what I know and people that I know, yes. I think there's a huge groundswell recently for experience in the industry to come forward. There's groups that I follow on LinkedIn. There's an agency basically called 40 Over 40 that's dedicated to people over 40. There's there's an agency in Sydney that's run by mature age creatives dedicated to clients that deal in older demographics. So it's there. It's a strange thing within our industry, though, that the whole ageism thing seems to be getting talked about. I haven't yet experienced it. I hope I don't. But usually I think it's a cyclic thing where it's run by trends and various, you know, buzzwords and things that they expect the younger demographic of creative or people in the industry to know it all for the new technology. You know, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but it does happen. But what I've also seen on the flip side of that is that clients soon wake up to the fact that they might be getting hoodwinked a little bit because they start missing, you know, an idea base or a storytelling base within their creative that quite often comes from an experience. So there is definitely an appetite for that, and I don't think that anyone of that vintage, should I say it, because I'm a year older than 45. I don't do the sums. What is that? Shouldn't feel afraid to do it. There's plenty of success stories, especially up here in Queensland, of people doing that. Yeah, go for it.
How about you, Tara? Like, it also feels here like there's a little bit of like a questioning or lack of confidence, and usually that confidence can get better with age because you've got a bit more experience. But in this case, it seems like confidence is a bit lower.
Well, I think, you know, I'm an advocate for Gary Vaynerchuk. I absolutely love his content, and I definitely think that this person might find it helpful to watch a little bit of that content, to just see that actually 45 isn't really as old as it once was. So, you know, historically, our age, I guess, we're living longer now. We're able to do more for longer now. We've got, you know, the internet, we've got computers, we've got all of these things that make work easier, essentially. So it means that we're actually able to go longer. And for me, one of the things is that if you're passionate about something, it's going to come through, and people are more excited by those who are passionate about what they're doing than perhaps, you know, a young spring chicken that has just come out of uni and doing it for the money, as an example, right? So I think there's a lot to be said here for, you know, understanding that actually this age isn't as old as we think it is. Though on the flip side, I can imagine that around 45, we've got more to lose. Mm-hmm. And I guess the risks or the stakes that are involved in this situation are higher. So with that being said, it's going to be important just to make sure that we've got our supports around us. So have we worked out the numbers? How long can we not bring something in for and not go belly up, right? How have we actually written down the practical stuff that you can touch that is, you know, life? There's another book that I really love called The Barefoot Investor, and, you know, going through the Barefoot Investor's process can then allow you to have a real comfortable structure on your financial security, on just knowing what's coming in, what's going out, what do I need to cover each month or week, however you budget. Getting really practical can actually be really helpful. And the question I would ask is, have you got the supports around you? I started my business doing the NEIS program. So that stands for New Enterprise Incentive Scheme. And it's a government incentive that supports people who want to start their own businesses. And that was fantastic for me. I found it super useful. I gained a certificate in new small business. I had mentoring for a year. They were helping me to understand my financials. So you know, I've had a business coach ever since. Like that, they're the things that are practical, that you can touch. And you can go, okay, hold on. Am I actually ready? Or is this actually what I want to do? What I thought I was going to achieve in the first year of my business was ridiculous and completely unrealistic, and I was not wearing my reality pants. And now 3 years in, I understand why.
That's such a great angle to take with it, because I think this question also is like, you know, it's very much around like what people will think.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I don't have enough, but actually what you've gone is like, well, just look at what you need. And rather than go like, you know, out there on stuff, and a subject that often comes up in asking for a friend, which is like, you can't control what you can't control. So look at the things that you can around you. So yeah, that's great.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
Just quickly, I should have said this before, but at that age, I think in this industry, you have a lot of contacts. So that side of it, as far as getting to know new people or getting the support or talking to other people that either are doing similar thing or can flick new clients your way or whatever, that should be almost an easy option. You know, reverse 20 years. If you're about that age, you probably don't have the same contact base. So that should be a good, you know, peace of mind. I know that I would if I was to do it.
Yeah, that's great. All right, Tara, over to you next. This one is obviously a little bit worrying, actually, that this is a question that still needs to come in. But bullying and harassment seem to be rampant in our industry. How do we cope and respond and deal with the fallout of calling it out? So there's obviously some sort of bullying happening here, whether it's to this person or to something that they've seen. But one of the things they're also most worried about is, you know, standing up and calling it out.
It is a real shame that there is still this fear around what are the repercussions of me speaking up. For me personally, my number one value is justice. So the moment that there is something that's not fair or not right or unjust, I simply don't have it in me to not speak up about it. That has resulted in me having formal complaints about me because of the top-down situation. It's resulted in a lot of different things. However, for me personally, it is more important for me to stand up than to worry about what happens afterwards. Now, I say that with a framework of I have the supports around me and the skills to be able to manage whatever fallout comes. Not everybody has those skills, right? So the first thing that I would be really encouraging for anyone who's experiencing any kind of bullying, whether you are the person perpetrating or you are the person receiving or observing, is actually accessing professional support. Because people who are perpetrating any kind of bullying or abusive interactions, it's usually a representation of something that's going in an unhelpful way in their own life. So there could be things that are happening in the home. It's like that kick the dog thing, you know, the dog didn't do anything. You come home really angry and then or you lose it at the kids or whatever. So there could be something going on within the perpetrator's space that actually could benefit from some compassion and kindness. That doesn't excuse their behavior, because violence is always a choice. So if it's violence through words, physical or power and control, it doesn't matter, financial violence, things like that, they are all people's choices. People are choosing to do that. So the best first step is to access some support to be able to actually talk about what's going on for you. If you're the person that is experiencing the bullying or the violence, and or you're observing a situation that's bullying, you can also go and access support. Now, there may be an EAP service that is provided through your organization. You may or may not feel comfortable to choose them. So another option is going to your GP and asking for a mental health care plan, which now, as a result of COVID, actually gives you 20 rebates per calendar year rather than the original 10, which means that you can really go into depth. And this time of year is a great time of year to get your first mental health care plan, because that means that you can use up as many of them as possible till the end of December, and then you start again with a full fresh 20 in the 1st of January. You just got to go back to the GP and ask for another referral. And when you do choose to go and see someone, go therapist shopping, because you may not vibe with the person that the GP originally refers you to, or maybe the GP space, the clinic practice has a psychologist in there and they just refer everybody to that person. That might not be the right fit, or they might not specialize in the area that you require the support for. So making sure that you find someone that fits, and yeah, just talking it out. I guess the final thing that I would bring up to this really is we have the opportunity to create an internal and external safe space. And we can do that in a lot of different ways. We can engage in some visuals, visualizations, or imagery. So perhaps before you go into work, you can put on a suit of armor and then step into your office with that suit of armor and really know that you're protected. And then when you leave work, you can take off the suit of armor and leave it at work. Or perhaps you could, I don't know, have an umbrella, visually, obviously, that you kind of, put up whenever that person is around, and then anything that comes at them can just bounce back off that umbrella. These things may sound silly and juvenile. However, I've personally used them myself when I was experiencing grief, and it was extremely valuable and helpful. So doing that as an internal space, and then externally creating a safe environment is really helpful. So making sure that it's comfortable, it's calm. You could rearrange the space so that your computer doesn't make you face a wall. It might help you to face a window so you get some trees. Perhaps taking extra breaks, so going out for a walk outside 3 times a day instead of 2, or just once if you never get up from your desk. Those are the little things that we can do that help to widen our resilience window so that we're more well equipped to handle these ups and downs that we experience.
Yeah, it's a pretty sad indictment actually on this industry, that we throughout the ages have kind of come to expect that being absolutely whipped, and I'm talking from a creative point of view here. So just caveat that I've never worked in account service and things, but I do know it happens. But from a creative point of view, that the hard-ass creative directors were kind of expected, and it was literally bullying. Like there was this unfairness, and it would break people. And I liken it to, a dog that was beaten too much when it was a pup. And the only way it learns to communicate is to snarl at you as it grows. It's the same thing. I've seen it and put it down to CDs that have probably suffered that when they were juniors and think that that's just the way that it goes. I'm really finding it's somewhat different these days, and maybe we're just lucky in Brisbane that the industry is small enough up here that we all know each other. And I think that word gets around quickly if you're a bit of a dick, So, but before I start unpacking that, if you feel that you will be bullied or are going to be victimized or targeted if you speak up, probably start thinking about another workplace, because any workplace these days that either sweeps under the carpet or turns a blind eye to it or makes you feel bad about either defending someone else or speaking up for yourself, they've got their priorities wrong. So at Khemistry, we've got a very strict anti-bullying policy. All the team leaders or the leadership group are very aware of it. And we make sure that all the staff here are aware that we know about it too. So that obviously works in multiple streams. Well, it's just not tolerated, and it will be called out or noticed and dealt with. And the other side of it too is that people feel supported that you do know about it. So therefore, they don't feel that, you know, they're going to be afraid to speak up about anything that might be worrying them. You know, as a junior, I was basically under a steel thumb by a creative director. I just sucked it up, thinking that was just the go. But after I left that agency, an art director from there actually said to me, "I don't know how you dealt with that for so long." I said, "Well, yeah, it was pretty hard, but, you know, it taught me a lot of good things." But at the same time, it kind of puts this little fear in the back of your mind of like, oh man, am I good enough? So you start questioning yourself, because at every step it was never good enough. Yeah. So in this industry that's basically a career built on asking for approval, you know, from a client, why are we constantly battling internal things of asking for approval without being victimized about it? So, and I know that bullying can come in a lot of different ways, you know, passive aggressiveness, pure out and out, demeaning, the whole lot. So I'm really lucky to work with a decent bunch of human beings here that we know that to leave your ego at the door, and basically a good filtration system if we are looking for new resources and people here. So for that, I haven't had much of an experience here, which is great. But we're all still very much aware that it's a policy. We just don't do it. So find a confidant if you feel that you are being victimized, maybe, and find a confidant, someone you trust in your agency. You know, luckily, creative teams, quite often we bounce off each other, and you have that. If not, speak to your HR or office manager about any relationships they might have with an enterprise psychologist agreement or something that you can go and see. And like Tara was saying, go and speak to them, and they can quite often be the person that can help you out navigate that next stage. But, you know, all in all, it just shouldn't be happening, should never be tolerated in this day and age.
Yeah, excellent. Lindsay, we'll stay with you, and I think this next one could be a little bit quicker as well. I think you've got some great tips, quick tips for this one. So how do you keep that spark alive and continue getting fulfillment out of a career in comms or creative when you keep running into similar problems and limitations everywhere you go? It does feel like this person is a little bit jaded, right?
Yeah. Old man Linz. No, oh man, this happens to everyone. You know, I don't think that we're the only ones that this has happened to, but I do think that this industry in particular, again, coming from a creative point of view, you're expected to be snappy and on and, you know, constantly original, and with timelines getting shorter and expectations getting longer, it's very easy to become like this. I think self-forgiveness is important. It's critical. Self-forgiveness comes in the form, I think, of being aware that being like this is completely normal. You know, forgive yourself. Okay, I'm like this. It'll be a passing thing. What can I do about it? Forgive yourself, first and foremost. Okay, that's cool. Let's take a step back. Strategies that I've tried to do in this situation is there's no magic to just bring the spark back. I really try and just return to things that I love. You know, I'll put on a record, or I'll go for a walk up the mountain, or just get some fresh air. Just do those things that are a step away from what we do every day. It'll open your mind up, look around you, and you'll probably find yourself thinking about work, but at least it's in a different space. It'll give you a different perspective. So then it can come back to you probably reviewing the situation after that. You've just sort of released, the pressure valve is gone. The biggest outtake of this would be true to yourself. if you feel that your spark is leaving you, why do you think that is? Just look at it and go, is it the work I'm working on at that time, putting a huge amount of pressure on myself to try and be the best I can? Do I actually believe in the work? Being true to yourself, you'll obviously investigate what your values are, and Tara's talked about values and things. If you work close to your values, you'll be passionate about it. So it'll probably rearrange your thinking and bring that spark back. It'll make you, or it'll help you move through those briefs that might not be 100% exhilarating. We all get them, but it'll also give you the energy to then look for or dedicate yourself to a project that might help you bring that spark back and create a good counterbalance. I've got a project happening at the moment that it's pushing me beyond my little comfort zones, but I'm trying to work out how to creatively, I'm passionate about mental well-being. You know, I've worked on a few projects here. I'm really passionate about that, had the experiences myself, but I'm trying to find a creative way of mixing music and skateboarding with mental well-being. And I've started exploring all these different things and contacting people, and it's opening up my mind into all these areas that I want to then formulate it into some kind of documentary. It's new for me, but you know what? It's letting off steam and creating that spark and enabling me to then work on the things day to day that may be the spark dimmer. Does it make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's one of those things, isn't it, that like, even just like there's the word in there around similar problems and limitations. Like it's often things that, you know, those limitations are things you can't control. So you've got to try and, again, like refocus on the things that you do have some sort of power of control and that align with you. I'm assuming this is something that also comes up in sessions for you, Tara, sometimes.
Yes, and there's, I guess, two things that come up for me when someone says, no matter what I do or what I try, you know, there's blocks in the way. And one question I do often ask, which I think doesn't contradict what Lindsay just said about, you know, forgiving yourself. However, I think it complements it, is if it's always happening to me, what's the common denominator? That's me. So what am I perhaps bringing to the table that's promoting these limitations or that's promoting these blocks? Or perhaps what skill blind spot do I perhaps have that I haven't been aware of? And I'm instead of looking inward, I'm looking outward, that the system is the problem or they're the problem. Well, hold on, what can I do differently to perhaps mitigate these problems or walk around them rather than just kind of, you know, running into the glass and just getting stuck, you know? Because that, I think, is a really helpful way of looking at it, because it gives you more agency over your outcomes. Because if we're just focused on everyone else is the bad person and it's not fair, well, what are we doing about it, and how can we move around that? So that was one of the things that came up for me as I was listening to Lindsay speak. And the second thing is if I use myself as the example, what I was seeing happening within the drug and alcohol space, there was a big gap, and people just weren't letting me do that in their organizations. So I created my own. So if you're seeing something with your creative vision that is clearly, in your eyes, the way to go, then perhaps that's just your incredible uniqueness that that could potentially change the world in the creativity space, whether it's music or graphics or whatever it is, computering. To me, creativity is, engineers and like everything. It's just, it encompasses everything. So you could potentially just be looking at a gap in the marketplace that you've just beautifully been able to see a solution to. So that could be, your little side thing or something that you start at 45.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, next question to Tara. So this one is good. So it is very industry specific, but it's also just like, how do we manage our mental health at these times and support other people? So I lead a design studio and was keen to hear any ideas you might have to help support positive mental health through a screen or a monitor. And as they say, over 55% of communication is body language. So that's really hard via video. It's hard to know to manage those casual check-ins as everything seems to the point, work, work, work. It's all over video. Love to hear any tips or tricks that you might have.
Yeah. Oof. I tell you what, COVID has definitely taught me how to handle this situation, and it has done it in a tsunami. You are absolutely right. You not being able to see under my elbows means that you have no idea if I'm nervously picking at my hands or if my foot is tapping profusely, unless perhaps my whole body wobbles with it, right? There are a lot of things that we can see and in people's body language that tells us what's going on. And when we're only able to see this much, it really diminishes that opportunity for us to understand and to explore. So what I think is really important is, for me anyway, I have the opportunity to get to know people, and then you look for changes. So is someone who's usually quite clean shaven, as an example, is now sort of scruffy? Or are you noticing someone who never used to wear makeup is now always done up to the nines? Or are you noticing that someone who is usually more outspoken and brought things to the table is kind of more meek and mild, right? If you're noticing changes, then that's a really great indicator that there could be something going on. It doesn't always mean that it's bad. It's just something's going on. And then really point it out. I've noticed that, you're looking a bit more untogether today. Is there anything going on for you, or were you just late? And, just actually putting the elephant out into the room and just pointing it out, because the secrecy and shame and isolation, they're all the things that breed mental health problems. Communication, honesty, vulnerability, self-expression are the things that help to reduce mental health problems. So you can even say, wow, I've been finding it really hard to have all these conversations over the screen. How are you doing with it? How are you coping with it? Or I'm noticing that I've stopped exercising. When was the last time you exercised? How about we as a team create a pact that this week we'll text each other on Thursday afternoon and go for a virtual walk together, right? Like, these are some things that you can do. Another thing that I think is really helpful, because I guess my sessions are all about mental health, whereas your sessions probably won't be, is have a set number of questions that you just kind of go to. And it could be, you've got 10 that go around on a bit of a wheel. And, some questions like, how is your sleep going? Where have you been going out socially? When was the last time you met up with your friends and family? When was the last time you exercised? Those sorts of things. And you can share your own experience and what's been helpful for you, as well as then, I guess, when you hear that someone's saying, actually, I'm not coping, then it's not, oh, okay, cool, I hope you feel better. It's, all right, let's dive into that and be comfortable with the discomfort of truth, because it can be uncomfortable. However, you're not going to make it worse by talking about it. You're actually going to make it better. You really, really are. Just by having someone truly, wholeheartedly listening to you, sharing that this has been really hard, even if there's no advice or no outcome, just being heard and seen instantly takes away, half of how intense it is for you, right? So just simply listening. And And yeah, you can see that my glasses have like this blue shine to them. These glasses have been my savior. They help to reduce the blue light that comes into my eyes, and so it doesn't impact my brain as much. And I'm no longer as tired as I was when I first started doing all these screen time sessions. But yeah.
Cool. That's great. Lindsay, anything you want to add that you perhaps do with your team? Like how do you keep up with them? And,
yeah, definitely. I'll try and keep this quick. This is definitely the question of the new age, isn't it? It's something that we've really had to quickly adapt to it, and probably not quite thought through exactly how it's going to go. I still think that we're treating it like a formal meeting every time, and that's probably just takes away that conversation and that friendliness that you somewhat get in if you're face to face, particularly around just internal catch up. So what we've tried to do at Khemistry here, and this is with the creative team, is yes, we have our briefs and things and everything that we've got to do, but as a team we'll just try and catch up for just a general chat, and we're good at just gibbering about stuff that could be random, and we just try and relax with it. And even though we're all in our house and wherever and we're separated, it still feels like we're close. I think the option to switch your camera off is probably the one that I've seen the most where people try to cover. I've been guilty of it myself. It's like, I'm still in my PJs, or you just don't feel like getting seen today because I haven't shaven, or I just can't face it. As a creative director, I'm trying to monitor that as much as I can, and not be right up, hey, switch your camera on. I'll just try and message separately and go, everything all cool, you want to catch up for a 10-minute chat, grab a coffee, and we'll do it and pretend it's almost face to face. So I just think it's, I tend to talk with my hands a lot. And that's a bit of a saving grace. If you just sit there like little meerkat and not do anything, people don't really know what's going on. So it might be just breaking your own little personal, habits and start getting a bit more animated as a top tip. And the final thing, I have heard a lot of feedback around the traps and read things that people really struggle with the pressure of video calls. You need to be on all the time. Like, it's not just that all the direction in, say, in a round table in a boardroom, if someone's talking, everyone's looking in that way to that person. Those behind the scenes need to sit back and relax a little bit. Everyone's in front of you here.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to always be there as if you're listening and you're there and blah, blah, blah. So people find that just draining. And I just think that, again, that'll be a learning thing, that we just accept that people are multitasking and they're in the room. It's just that we've got things to do. So I reckon we'll get better at it.
I walked past my wife's computer the other day, and there's like, I don't know, like 20 people on the screen, but Teams has this like stadium seating. Have you seen that? So everyone is like, you're looking out at a stage, and everyone's got like plastic seats behind them, and it looks like they're all in a stadium. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool, but it is that kind of thing. It's like everyone is visible.
Yeah.
And so that can be quite confronting, knowing that you can be watched at any point in time.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do a little plug here. We recently launched Circles, which is an initiative for the creative industry to add a little bit more support outside of your workplace. So we've just set that up, and we've got a pilot program starting next Tuesday, in fact, which is also how I met Tara, who screened me to make sure that I was okay enough to run that program as well. So that's for it's a 6-month commitment. It allows you to come into small kind of peer rooms, where actually the point of them is to be able to talk about how you're doing, your well-being, your mental health, and also other things around career. So you can check that out at nevernotcreative.org/circles. Okay. Lindsay, this is not a new one. I feel like this has been with us for years and years and years. But this person literally has just told us, I've worked late every night for the past 3 weeks, and at least 8 to 10 hours extra on the weekends. It seems like there's a pitch every week, which is good, of course. but I'm really starting to lose energy, friends, motivation. How do I tell work I need a break without looking like I can't cope?
Yeah. Has everyone got 3 hours? I'll, look, as concise as I can be, this is very similar to, I suppose, the Spark question, where it's, it's about giving yourself that permission to understand that it is draining. You're not, there's probably people that you're working shoulder to shoulder with every day. They're experiencing the same thing. So it's, so while it's not normal working that type of hours, it's normal to feel that way, of course. So where do you go from there? Just be aware that it can be old school peer pressure that just keeps that going. Everyone just thinks it's the norm. So everyone slots in. No one talks about it until people just start falling in the trenches around you. And then before it's too late, that's when, or when it's too late is when people start noticing it's a problem. I think there's an element of grit your teeth and do it, but also, when I say that, I don't mean suck it up. I mean, in this environment, particularly this year, there's this real fear that if we don't really hunker down and give 150% instead of the 110%, that there's a possibility of whether it's job loss, client loss, agency closure, etc. So there's this real innate fear that's driving it. At the same time, agencies will close if they drive their people into the ground. So there's got to be that balance that comes from it. The balance that I've tried to do when people have come to me and my team and said, you know what, I'm on my last legs here. Like I'm about to keel over. I've said, cool. No, I haven't. I've said, all right, completely hear you because I'm in the same boat. Let's get through this week because it's kind of impossible to, have some time off this week or take that brief off you or whatever it might be. Let's work out maybe next week. I know it's not ideal. Next week, you can have a mental health day. I talk with my direct report above me, my boss, and work out how we do that. And I make it clear with people that it will be balanced. It might be an extra day on your holidays. It might be, in 2 weeks' time, have a long weekend because I know that people have been struggling. I'm talking from this agency point of view. I don't know what the policy or the willingness of other agencies to do that, but I try and empathetically approach people with that because it just comes from experience as well. I used to think that to prove yourself to other people and how good you are, you need to basically destroy yourself to do it. It works completely opposite because you fall off the cliff at the end of it. And I've done that multiple times because you either forget yourself or think, oh, now it's time to prove myself again. It doesn't need to happen. I think these days, the best way to prove that you're doing well is to kind of stand up for yourself a little bit and say, right, boss, I know that there's 2 pitches coming. Before I go into doing those 2 weekends straight, I want to arrange the following Monday after that to have off. Thank you very much. If not, I'll call in sick.
Yeah, good.
What are they going to do about it?
Yeah.
So if they say, no, rack off, you're easily replaceable, again, it goes back to, is that who you want to be working with? Or you just take it upstream to HR and things like that. So there's no real answer to it. And I know we're all a bit mad for kind of accepting it for this long, and it will be this horrible thing that happens in this industry, this sort of commoditized industry. But we're getting better at finding that balance and speaking up. Yeah. And you just got to do it.
If I can just jump in quickly, because this is in a way a little bit similar to one of the questions that's popped in the live question box. In the question box, it asks specifically around imposter syndrome and self-doubt. This person says, I find the anxiety cripples my creativity and my brain draws a blank. My psych says the fight or flight brain inhibits these higher functions of the brain. And are there any tips to overcome this? So essentially, I have a bit of a crush on the brain. So I have a brain right here.
Oh, wow.
However, the way that this actually links in with this other question, I don't know what's just happened. Sorry, the screen just did something. The way that it sort of links in is if we're stressed, or we're worried, or we're anxious, or we're physically hurting, or we're unwell, what happens is our brain goes into fight or flight, which is essentially where the middle part of the brain releases what I call mush, which is all of the chemicals that switch on everything in my body that I need to run away or fight the tiger, and switches off everything that I don't need to run away or fight the tiger. And one of the things that we don't need is this whole guy here at the front. So this is where language happens, conflict management happens, personality, memory, problem solving, all the stuff that makes us really human-like and functionable, if that's a word, is all up in here. So when mush is present in the brain, this whole part goes to sleep. So it literally means that we are going to take longer to do the same task, which I'm wondering whether that could be part of what's going on here, is I'm just so overworked and so tired that everything's taking longer, which then means I'm working into the weekends, which means I'm going to bed late at night. So the brain actually has two natural reset buttons, kind of like a PlayStation or an Xbox, whichever one you prefer, that gets rid of the mush and switches back on the front of the brain. And the first thing is exercise. And the reason that exercise works is if you think back in the Ugg days when we had saber-toothed tigers trying to kill us at our cave, there were three options that could occur when a tiger came to the front of our cave. One, I become lunch. And if that's happened, well, sorry. Two, it becomes lunch. So I've managed to kill it. Or three, I've run away, climbed a tree, and it's got bored and left. In the two where, like, pretend I haven't become lunch, in either fighting it or running away from it, I have gone through some extreme intense movement for a period of time, and then I've relaxed. That's what exercise does. So if you're exercising regularly and you're thinking, well, hang on, how can I exercise even more than this? For example, I had a client who was a marathon runner who had very big anxiety problems. And when I spoke to them about exercise, they were like, how can I do any more than 40 Ks a week? This is ridiculous. And I said, do something different that shocks your body. Do a yoga class, go for a swim, go the opposite direction. If you always go out of your house and turn right, turn left and do the block backwards. Doing something that will shock your body will help to actually switch this part of the brain back on, because we use up the mush that's here. So that's going to help you with your sleep. That's going to help you with your productivity. That's going to help you with your mood, your relationships, and all of that. The second reset button is mindfulness, because if we can separate ourselves out from this area of the brain and actually kind of like look down on the situation rather than being in it, that allows us to go, oh, hang on a second, there's another option of doing this, or I could delegate to that person, or, you know, you can find other options. So the two reset buttons for the brain are exercise, so move your body, and which is really great mush management. And then secondly, mindfulness practice.
That's excellent. Two birds with one stone. We just got there as well. Brilliant. That little thing you saw on your screen was me saying that we were answering that question.
Cool.
Also, I don't know whether this is a coincidence, but the first time the words rack off have been mentioned in an asking for a friend is also in the same time that we got our first Queenslander on the session. So I don't.
There's a correlation in that. It's like I can. Yeah. Sorry, guys.
The other thing I'd want to mention about pitches as well is that, and I think you kind of mentioned it, Lindsay, like there is instantly, just if you say the word pitch, almost in the next sentence, the word weekends comes, right? Like it's like, oh, there's a pitch coming. We all are just assuming that actually we're going to have to work the next few weekends. I just wonder whether we can break that habit, let's not start with the assumption. Let's go, you know what, we know it's there. We know it may come into play. It's coming to play on every other pitch. But actually, what if we plan the pitch to go, we want to have the answer by Friday or, the following Friday. So there's only one weekend in it, perhaps.
Yep.
And I think, like pitches, there's so much. I've done pitches where we've done, if you were to add up all the time, 250 grand's worth of work. And we won it, so that was great, and it's probably worth like $1 million, and that was excellent as well. But then we saw everybody else's pitches. The client sort of just shoved them to us, and we were like, oh, we didn't need to do $250,000 worth of work. We probably would have won this with not even half that. And I think this kind of thing is like, how much do you really want to invest? And there's this assumption that we're just going to write off that, but we're not just writing off time in an agency way. We're writing off people. And I think we need to get much, much better at managing. I've heard people hire like pitch coaches or appoint someone in your team to be a pitch coach, someone that's there to kind of help the team go through that process.
And actually on that topic, it kind of links in with another question that's come through. It says, I've been struggling with rejection fatigue in looking for work. How do you muster the drive to keep going? I think what's really important is to understand that, firstly, rejection from an ugh day perspective is being sort of pushed out of your clan. So you're feeling unsafe. And a really great way of managing that is, again, through exercise and mindfulness. But I guess what's important to remember is that we're not going to be right for everyone. Just like if you're in a relationship, the people who are in that relationship were right for each other. The role that you got in your job was right for you, and you were right for it. The example that you just brought up about winning this pitch that you did, that's because you were the right agency or the right people for that organization. So it's actually, while I completely understand the importance of having your financial security managed, and if that's what's the ongoing struggle, then perhaps what we do is, while we're looking for our dream job, we also apply for things that are perhaps outside of what we would usually do. So it might be that you get a Christmas casual job somewhere, or do tutoring online for someone, or whatever it could be, to bring in the money, so that while you're looking for the right fit, you've got your financial needs met. Because Maslow's hierarchy of needs means that if we don't have these basic needs met, nothing else can happen. So if you're not having your safety, security, and home and food met, then we need to just focus on that. And maybe for the next 12 months, we don't work in a creative space, and we just work in somewhere else that you can get a job. It doesn't mean it's failure. It just means things are a bit different for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I think is interesting with this one, and you sort of touched on it there, is like so often when you are looking for a job, you are appraising places that you want to work based on the perception of what you think of them, right? Like these have won all the awards in everything that, I want to work in. And so it's like, it's that. But actually the other thing I would suggest, and you kind of were talking about fits there, is often businesses will look for employees, that fit well with them. You have to do exactly the same thing the other way around. So as you're researching places that you're looking for work, like be quite selfish, like look for places, do a bit more research rather than just the agency ranking list, but the research into, I really like this person, they work there. Oh, maybe that means that they fit. Or maybe I'm a bit like this person over here and they fit well in that business. So that's another thing that I think you can use just to go, make sure you're looking in the right place, which sort of, removes some of that risk of rejection as well. And we're flying through those questions. That's good. We've got, in fact, we might just keep on there for a little bit. So we've done 1, 2, let's go into here. I've recently been diagnosed with ADHD and placed on stimulant medication. Now I can't function without it, whereas I could before. Is this an addiction or is it normal? Straight to you, Tara.
Yay! Well, I was actually really excited to see this question, because the first thing that I want to say is congratulations you for going and getting it sorted. Oh my gosh, ADHD is hard, really hard to just handle without medication. So what I think was probably going on for you is if you were properly diagnosed, right? So let's just make the assumption that you were properly diagnosed, and this is actually true. What was happening is you were working double hard to try and handle everything that you were doing prior to the diagnosis and the proper medication being given to you. Now that you've got the medication, it's the same as for someone who perhaps hasn't been wearing, so these aren't prescription, but let's just say that I really struggled to see, and I had to really strain to read, and I'm really trying to read, and I could do it, but it was really hard and it wasn't as good. And then all of a sudden I get glasses and I'm like, oh, wow, that's what words look like. Oh, this is so much easier. Now my brain has said, if you do this, it's hard. If you do this, it's not. Let's do this, because it uses up extra calories. And again, ugh days, if we use up calories for not a helpful purpose, then we could die. So what your brain and your body is doing is saying, we've found our groove, let's stick with that. So my advice would be, again, if you're finding that it's helpful for you and you're not engaging in any unhelpful behaviors as a result of this, then continue to take your medication as prescribed and continue to reconnect with your psychiatrist around where you're at, what's going on, how the medication is working for you, because there may be a time in the future where things may change, and that's okay. It's just for right now, it seems like it's really, really working for you. So well done, essentially.
Yeah, let's go. We have a question here that's going to go straight to you, Lindsay. As an international creative, how can I win the confidence of agencies to give me a try in the Australian industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. Without knowing all the details within that of, origin, experience, whether you're on the ground here or still international looking, to contact people here. I truly believe that any creative with a good book can work anywhere. It also kind of fits in with what we've just answered previously about looking for a job and getting that fatigue. It's not everywhere is the right fit. I expect that we looked at different policies like visa, etc. I know I've worked at agencies that sometimes are resistant to do, the sponsoring part of it, because it can be expensive and laborious, which is unfortunate. But some agencies are just not big enough to do that, whereas others quite quickly take on international creators because they bring a good raft of new experience and a variety to the department that they work in. So it really comes back to keeping the chin up and just trying. LinkedIn is a really great one to just reach out and start learning the creatives on the ground, and also the agencies, obviously. Just be tenacious. Just keep hammering them. Self-reviewing in the level of your creative that you've got in your book compared to what that agency might be doing is another good start. If there's a highly, highly awarded agency that you're, and quite huge agency that you might be applying at here, whereas your book comes from a very small independent agency with, work that's good but may not be highly, it might be a little bit of a discrepancy against what they're looking for. But what I look for in creatives also was the personality, what they can bring to the table, what's their extra 10%, you know, what are they? Because it's not just their book. They might have the best book in the world, but might be a complete dick. Whereas a person with a good book, but is also a great person, you know that can work wonders as well, not just of the relationship that you immediately have with them, but also the team around them, plus then with the client relationship too. And you can only get better from there. So international or not, I kind of get where you're coming from, but there are those little strategies that you can use to really, I suppose, affirm that you're worth that role at that agency you're seeking.
I mean, again, everything's quite personal opinions, but I always loved teams that were much more international. Like when you've got people, we had a team in the last agency from somebody from Colombia, someone from Brazil, someone from the UK, someone from the States, bunch of people from different states within Australia. Like that, ideally you want so much diversity in your creative process and product, right? And so I would also then, from that perspective, knowing that, you know, some people do like the international part, like try and put forward what it is, what that strength is. Like not just, oh, I come from this country, so I must be a bit different. But actually, like, what makes you different? Like your upbringing, like the other stuff that you do as a result of coming from a different place, I think is good to talk about. So we are pretty much on time, but what I would like to do, Tara, I'd like to give you the final word, if that's okay, because we're about to head into Christmas. We did have one final question, which was around, you know, obviously it's been a pretty shit year, and I've looked after myself quite well over the last 6 months, but I'm worried about coming into Christmas that I'm just going to blow out. What do we do? And, you know, when someone approaches me going, come on, let's go and have more than one drink, how do we make sure that, like, do we punish ourselves for that? Do we do it, blow out, regret it? How do we handle all this?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, let's put on our reality pants and take off our judgment pants and look at it and go, oh, okay, well, Christmas is hard, right? Christmas is hard at the best of times. But Christmas post-COVID, I mean, if you've got stress levels up to here on a usual year, they're well and truly bubbling over this year. So when we put everybody together into a pressure cooker of unhelpful relationships potentially, then there are going to be blowouts. One thing that I can guarantee is that drinking and using drugs is not going to actually help that situation. It's probably going to inflame that situation. So it might be a case of making a decision that I'm going to go alcohol-free this Christmas period, or perhaps I'm going to set myself a limit. So it might be that you say, all right, well, at any event, I'm going to have 2 drinks and that's it. Or between every drink, I'm going to make sure that I have 2 glasses of water, or eat some food, or, you know, having a little bit of a plan can be really, really helpful. The other thing as well is if you've been managing yourself quite well over the last 6 months, then you've actually worked out a really great strategy to handle yourself into the next holiday period. So essentially the things that you've been doing that have been really helpful and working, let's just keep doing that. And if you start to notice that things are dropping off, so let's just say, for example, we've got 3 things that we've been doing that have been keeping us well over COVID: going to bed on time, exercising, and meditating, right? So let's just say that meditation is the thing that drops off first. And then it's, you know, whatever the second one was, then the order that those things dropped off is actually the order of the most important things to keep you well. So what you've done is you've actually found what your non-negotiables are. So in that example, the non-negotiable is meditating. So as long as you make sure that you meditate each day, if that is your non-negotiable, then you're probably going to be well set for your experience of Christmas. However, communicate often and early. Recruit people onto your team. You know, no is a legitimate answer. You can simply say, I'm not going to come to that event because I don't want to. Or no, actually, the Christmas party usually gets pretty messy at around 8 p.m. So I've already organized a dinner date with a friend of mine at 7:30. So I'll come for the beginning part. However, I'm leaving at 7 so that I've got these other plans, and that means you miss the messy part. It could be that you take someone with you that's a support person that can help to kind of be the buffer, or can help steer you through unhelpful situations. A really great phone line that it isn't on the list of brilliant lines that is on that first list that was put up before. It's called the ADIS phone line, so Alcohol and Drug Information Service. And the phone number, which is a national phone number, it's 1-800-250-015. And you can call that from any state, and it will link you to the state that you're in. So even if you're on holidays and you're, let's say, in Queensland, and you'll get the Queensland people. So they won't be able to give you support for Melbourne, but they can at least give you counselling and support in that moment. They're really great. I love the people that answer the phone on there. And also, if you're feeling like things are really hard, then we've always got the suicide callback service, which isn't as well known as Lifeline and Beyond Blue. So there's more of a chance of actually being answered. And they're a really great line to call, even if you're not feeling suicidal, you're just feeling like life's a bit hard right now, or I'm feeling really stressed and I'm not sure what to do. They're going to be able to help you with some little tools and tips and tricks to manage your well-being in that moment. Just have an exit plan, really. That's my kind of takeaway, is set something up to be able to exit stage left.
That's awesome. I think that's a very, very good end to today's session. I want to thank you both as well, because I'm sure people may have noticed, but a lot of preparation went into today's session. There was lots of notes that were already there beforehand, and I'm sure everyone really appreciates the fact that you guys put the time in before as well. And so it's been excellent. I've really enjoyed it. I've got notes all over the shop, and I think this was a perfect way to finish a rather weird year. So 2020 is no more for asking for a friend. The rest of us, we still have a few weeks to go. We're going to take January off, and we're going to return in February. So if you are watching this, you can still jump onto the whatever link it was that you registered before, and you'll be able to just get in early for February, because you might have stored a few things up from January. But obviously, if you need other help in the meantime, use some of the resources that we brought out today. Thanks, everyone, for your comments coming in there on the side. Much needed. Brilliant. Very good. That's great to see. So, yeah, and, thanks again, Tara and Lindsay. This will be up in a few days as a recording up on the site, and we'll be back in February.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Tara. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Tara.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers, bye.